Hey, John Cruz here, and we're on Lake Lanier. It's late April. There's a lot of fish that are spawning. There's a lot of fish that are done spawning. They're in post-spawn period. And we've got a little bit of wind today. We had some cloud cover this morning. It's kind of breaking up, being a little partly cloudy. Water temperature is in the mid to upper 60s. So we're gonna just cover a lot of water and see if we can't spot a lot of these fish using the Spro Fat John. It's a cellmate. Looks a lot like a lot of the shad and bait fish that are in this lake. In a lot of lakes, the water's relatively clear here, so we're gonna be cranking pretty fast. 6.4 to 1 reel, long rod, making long casts for this clear water. And hopefully we're gonna get this wind and this crankbait to show us where some of these big fish are. Maybe we'll catch some on the crankbait. Maybe we'll have to follow up, we'll see. And what I'm targeting here is that there's a lot of fish in the spawn and in the post-spawn. And the better fish are definitely along the secondary points and even the main channel points where there is a little bit of flatter ground. You know, what we've got here is a little bit of scattered rock, some laydowns, stuff like that. Even if you can find a little bit of a pocket. I'm covering a lot of water with this bait right here, and you'd be surprised at the fish that run out there and look at it. And you'll see them. Sometimes you'll catch them. If you get enough wind, you can definitely catch them. If not, a lot of times those fish will come up, flash on it. You'll see them. You can turn around, throw a slower bait in there, and catch them. So it is a great search bait during the spawn. Now the reason I like this Spro Fat John for this application right here is because it's a fat body bait. It weighs 5/8 of an ounce, so you can throw it a long ways. It's got a real hard wobble. You get a lot of reaction strikes from that, and it's got a nice little hunting action. So even in this clear water, you reel it fast, it's got that little hunting elusiveness type to it, and man, the fish they just love it. So that's the reason I'm using that bait. A lot of people come up to a dock like this and they just run right past it when they're fishing a crankbait. That's a big mistake. I catch a ton of fish paralleling crankbaits and bringing them around the corner, stuff like that. Those fish run right out from under those docks and they come out and grab the crankbait. So the Fat John is a perfect application, bait, dock, fish, catch. Okay, I'm getting ready to retie here. I'm using Vicious Ultimate line, and there's one knot that I use exclusively for fluorocarbon and monofilament lines, and it's a San Diego jam knot. And here's how you tie it. You go through the line tie one time, and you get about 1 foot of excess out. You go under and hold with your right hand, this one, the right side, and then you make 4 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you take the very tag in, go through the bottom loop, and then you go back through the top loop that you're holding with your right hand, but you go through in the same direction that your main line is going through. So I can see that my main line and the tag in are going through in the same direction. And you always wet your knots. Always wet it, cinch it down, pull it down, and before you tighten it up, if you want to check to make sure you tied it correctly, grab the tag end of that knot and pull on it, and if it slides up the main line just like that, you've tied it correctly. And then you can grab your main line, cinch it back down, cut off your tag end, you're ready to go. You know, as a general rule of thumb, the clearer the water, the faster I'm gonna crank. This water right here is pretty darn clear, so I'm cranking this bait pretty fast, and I'm going for strictly reaction bites. I don't want that fish to get a very good look at the bait. I want to just have it screaming coming by him, and I want him just to react to it and bite it. The dirtier the water, you might have to slow it down a little bit. They seem like they eat it a little bit better when you're in that muddy water. Stained water, you can kind of play with it, sometimes a little slower, sometimes a little faster. But the clearer the water, definitely the faster. Told you. He ran out from under that dock and couldn't take it. Could not take it. Man. Got him a mouthful of Gamakatsus. A little guy. Okay, let me go over the gear that I'm using when I shallow crankbait fish. This is the Spro Fat John in the cellmate color. This is probably my favorite shallow running crankbait color. Love it in the post-spawn, summertime, anytime the fish are keyed in on shad, herring, stuff like that. I love this color. I tie it onto 17-pound Vicious Ultimate. I really like the copolymer lines whenever I'm fishing around rock and wood. Seems like it casts a little bit better, deflects off wood a little bit better, and you land more fish, as opposed to fluorocarbon. I like that when I'm fishing around grass. Helps you rip the grass free. You can feel the bait vibrate a little bit better. So that's kind of my system with line. And always on the end of my crankbaits, Gamakatsu round bend trebles. These are number 3s. They come standard on the Spro Fat John, but if you need to replace them, that's what you get. And on the rod, I'm using a Pinnacle Perfecta, and this is a 7-foot 8-inch crankbait rod. This is really good for this any fat wobbling big crankbait like that. You can throw it a long ways, and you've got a lot of control once you hook up with that fish, where if you get hung in the grass, you need to rip it out of that grass. Very good for doing all that. And of course, I use a Pinnacle Optimus bait casting reel. 6:4 to 1 is the gear ratio. Very important that you have that high gear ratio. You can burn it, get that bait moving as fast as you need to, especially in the clear water. Places like that you need that fast retrieve. And a lot of times when those fish hit that shallow running crankbait, they're coming to you. 6:4 to 1 is what you need to keep up with those fish, keep it coming. Plus, you got to have a smooth drag system. I got mine tightened down a little bit because it's 17-pound. If you got 10 and 12, it is super important that you have that smooth drag system, and you also want a reel that casts very well. But the 6:4 to 1 smooth drag, super important. And that's the gear that I use when I'm shallow crankbait fishing, and you can find it all at tacklewarehouse.com.